It's Tuesday and it's time for Falcon Focus. Welcome to this week's edition of Falcon Focus, episode number 10 here in season number 4. And we make the transition now from fall sports to winter, and it's an all basketball edition. In segment number 2, we talk with the all-time winningest men's basketball coach in Falcon history, that being Sean Cassidy. He is back for his 16th season, and they officially tip off their brand new season tonight here inside the John Book Fieldhouse, a 7 o'clock tip-off against Concordia Chicago. But here in segment number 1, we talk women's basketball, and for the Falcons, they will be home for the first time tomorrow night with a 7 o'clock tip-off, also against Concordia Chicago. My name is Matt Menzel. I'm being joined here in segment number 1 by a senior guard in Reagan Obrey. Can you believe it's already your senior season?
Oh, my goodness.
Time flies, doesn't it?
Exactly. Don't even get me started. Literally, I was talking with a few other seniors the other day and just talking about how we all started in like 4th grade and 3rd grade. And I did the math in my head. I was like, this has been 13 years of pure basketball and nonstop basketball. So it's going to be insane this year.
Does it feel like it went quick?
Oh, absolutely. I had zero clue that it was going to happen this quick. I feel like sophomore and junior year just like all meshed together for me. And it's just been an insane ride.
Well, your senior season officially began on Friday, a matchup against Illinois Wesleyan. That was played in Holland, Michigan. What did you guys learn from that experience playing a quality team like Illinois Wesleyan?
Right. Coach, before we even started the game, she was like, we play the hardest teams because we want to be the best team in our conference and continue on into the NAC tournament and the NCAA tournament. So playing a difficult team like that, obviously they have a very good record. And coming into that tournament, we had Illinois Wesleyan, and Hope was also in that tournament, who was literally the D3 defending champs. So coming into that tournament and playing all these great teams that we don't necessarily see all the time was amazing. And just having that opportunity to play against a really good team and really good coaches and everything like that was amazing.
Quick turnaround then on Saturday, taking on the Golden Tornadoes of Geneva, knocking off the Twisters, 81-72. What was the difference in that game?
Just a major I feel like they did not have as much discipline as what Illinois Wesleyan did have. So just a major switch up. They had to press on us, and they pressed against Hope while we were watching them kind of beforehand in the game right after us against Illinois Wesleyan. And just picking up on those little things that we saw in the game and things like that, and just owning that and doing everything that we used to do and continuing on and focusing on their weaknesses and things like that.
From a confidence booster, was it big to have that quick turnaround to quickly learn from what you learned on Friday and apply it in the game action on Saturday?
Absolutely. It was just great to kind of have that quick turnaround, because just like sitting and sulking in like a loss and everything like that is just never a good sign, and continuing on with positives and having a high-scoring game and continuing things like that, it was amazing.
You guys, as mentioned, were in Holland, Michigan, home of the Wooden Shoes and at Hope College. How nice of a facility was that at Hope?
Oh, my goodness. I walked in there, and I looked at my teammate Smitty, and I was like, what the heck? Are we still D3 right now? Like, it was amazing. So it was really cool to see it. I don't know.
Now, Saturday, you had a total of 10 points, knocked down a couple of threes. On top of that, you added 6 rebounds, 3 steals. Were you pleased with your performance?
I was very pleased. I did have a few fouls right away at the beginning, so I did have to sit for a little bit. But going in the game whenever I could, and whenever Coach felt it was okay for me to go in due to my fouls and everything like that, I felt the need to continue on and to push while I had my time there. And that's where I feel like I had most of my steals and most of my rebounds, because I had the energy and I had the motivation and just the drive to keep going and doing things like that.
Yeah, nice, well-rounded performance on Saturday. Now, during the off-season for you, what was your focus? What areas did you point at and go, hey, I want to get better here?
I just wanted overall consistency, like just getting in the gym, shooting as much as I possibly could, working on some defensive stuff. Defense is a big thing for this program and also myself as a player, and just continuing to work on shooting consistency, dribbling consistency, and just to be an overall good team leader, and like texting the team as much as I possibly could, saying, hey, let's do this today, or let's really show up to league, because we had leagues once a week over at Stritch, and just saying we all need to get in the gym. Let's keep working hard, work on yourself, so that way our team can be a better team as we continue on.
For you, when the last basketball season, so last season, came to a close, do you take time off, or do you quickly get in that mindset, hey, it's the off season now, I'm ready to start preparing for next year?
I take only a week off because I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life towards the end of it, and I want to continue that on, and I don't want to like lose any progress on it. It is a completely different mindset from basketball into preseason and like working on myself and like getting in the weight room a little bit more and like getting into like working on cardio a little bit more, and rather than just pure basketball like what you're doing during the season, you're working on every other aspect as well.
You mentioned leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Is that new for you? Is that something that you've been developing over the last couple of years? Have you been that quote-unquote leader since day one?
I think last year I've definitely developed it a lot. Sophomore year, I was given the opportunity to start as a sophomore, which was amazing. And I think that's when I started to steal a couple of leadership tips from people like Clara, Cam, Emily, and taking some of those things and like developing them into my own personal style and continuing that junior year, like as we did lose Emily last year. That's when I felt the need to step up and do those things like that and kind of recruit a bunch of like my other teammates to continue those leadership skills as well, and just to continue that on into my senior year. I want to make sure this team has a legacy until I leave and beyond when I leave.
Last year, the Falcons going 13-9. Competitive throughout conference play, a team that would fall in the conference tournament quarters against a very good Benedictine squad. When you look back to last season, what was the story of that year? How would you summarize the way that season played out?
We continually talked about adversity. We had many injuries. It really depended on the week, honestly. And I feel as though coming from high school and past experiences, I've dealt with a lot of adversity. Like my senior year of high school, I had a ton of injuries. And so continuing through that adversity and saying, this could be my last game, why not give it 1,000,000% as much as you possibly could? And I feel like I'm going to continue that into my senior year, of course, since this is going to be my last season, working on each and every game and giving that 1,000% and continuing that over into the season.
Now, you were one of the few players that played in all 22 games,
Yes.
started all 22 games. You averaged over 10.5 points per ball game. How did you feel your junior season went?
I feel like it was a season that I really needed. We talked about leadership earlier, and I think that's when I started to develop my leadership and just come into my own as a player for this program.
So in 3 prior seasons as a Falcon, what memories, highlights come to mind so far in your time at Concordia?
I would have to say we always talk about our first trips, like for our non-conference games. There's always something that goes wrong. So I don't remember, it was last year or 2 years ago, we went to Loras College, and our bus driver, he was trying to go down a hill, and we got stuck because the bus was way too large, and it just got stuck on there. And I just thought it was hilarious that, like, of course, adversity once again. And the Loras College coaches came to pick us up in all their personal cars and things like that. It was hilarious just to, like, keep us going. So, like, adversity literally in every single aspect of basketball is hilarious, but it really helped us out and got us closer as a team altogether.
When you look at some of your on-the-court highlights, one game that jumps out from last year at a 17-point showing, going 7 for 12 from the field. That was a game against Aurora in January. What do you remember about that performance?
I just remember kind of just like a feeling of just like, I know exactly what I'm doing, and like whatever they throw at me, I know exactly what to do with it. And just that's the game that I fully found my consistency with my shooting and my consistency as a defender and my consistency as a player overall, and I didn't want to get off that court for that entire game.
Do you have a pretty good sense early on in games, you know, that first shot goes in or it comes close, what kind of game is going to be for you?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I can tell during warm-ups, I'm like, it feels really nice off my fingertips. I love it. Or I can just, like, whenever it's not falling for that game, I always know, like, okay, now is the time that, like, I have to start driving or I have to start looking for my teammates. It's just like a quick dish to Smitty or anyone in there. So,
well, we bring up the Aurora game from January, and then 3 days later you record a double-double against Dominican with 13 points and 11 rebounds. Is that one of those performances where you just feel like, man, everything's just going my way, whether it be scoring, but also the ball's coming to me, I find those rebounds?
Right, exactly. And I think rebounding for every single player is, I want that extra effort, and I want to continue doing that. And, of course, when we shoot as well as we do or we don't shoot as well as we do, rebounding can be an up in the air type of situation. But just continuing that extra drive for steals, rebounds, anything like that, I will continue to work on. And
now the number one question we ask every athlete, you're from Neenah, why Concordia?
I chose Concordia mostly for the OT program. I am currently in my 4th year, of course, and just continuing that. And we have a fantastic medical field here. And of course, I immediately texted coach, and I said, hey, tell me about your program and everything like this. And then I came to one game against Lakeland, and I immediately could tell. I was like, this is exactly for me. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I just loved it so much. And the overall team dynamic was amazing, and I never wanted to choose another school. So I immediately called coach, and I said, it was like in October before I started my senior year, I was like, I want to come here.
Well, and with the Rockets, you were a basketball athlete, volleyball, track and field. Did you ever give thoughts to maybe going volleyball or track and field in college, or was it always basketball?
It was always basketball. I did AAU over the summer, so I was constantly in my basketball mindset. Of course, I do miss volleyball. Track was it was a lot of running, but it got me in shape for things like basketball over the summer and everything like that. But I always knew it was going to be basketball.
If you've been to Neenah High School, you know they have a very unique gym. It's
Yes.
pretty historic as well, and I just read that this is the final year of that gym. Apparently, a new field house is going up at Neenah High School.
Yeah, we're building a whole new high school over in the corner. Yeah, so insane.
They're going to take the little rocket ship that's in the front of the school
They
with
gotta,
it. I mean,
yeah.
that's iconic. What are your memories in your time as a Rocket?
I just remember how dealing with adversity again and just continuing to work on myself as a leader and myself as a human being, leading myself and my team through different basketball journeys, and just how we had a bunch of quick turnarounds and how different that is right now with a quick turnaround from previous Friday and Saturday at the tournament, and how I used to do that all the time in high school and how insane that was. And just continuing to work on the things that I did in high school and the things that my high school coaches told me, and how similar he is to Coach Brunner and things like that. So yeah.
Bringing it back to the current, okay, so the team off to a 1-1 beginning, getting ready now for Concordia, Chicago. And that matchup takes place at 7 o'clock here inside the John Book Fieldhouse on Wednesday. When you look at the makeup of this Falcon team, this is a pretty experienced team, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We have most of our starting lineup still the same. We only have 3 freshmen coming on. We have a few walk-ons. We have a transfer. But immediately this team over preseason, we just clicked right away. And that comes that takes a very long time, but the fact that it happened immediately was amazing for all of us. And even during practices, we recognize the things that we did in the past and things like that, and then the newbies always figure it out right away, which is amazing.
Yeah, added depth this season when you look at that roster.
Yes.
This may be difficult to answer 2 games in, but I guess just from what you've seen in preseason now in the game action, what do you think could be strengths of this team, at least early in the season?
Literally our depth of our bench. I did play a lot of minutes last year, which I'm totally fine with, but having the depth of the bench so that way everyone is 1,000,000% energized, ready to go into the game will be amazing for this team. And just how we can switch up the lineups whenever we feel like it by having our 2 true posts in, or having an Emily or an Aubrey in who can play post or guard and things like that, and just switching up all the lineups or switching up the defenses that we could have.
What goals do you have for yourself for the team?
Conference champs, easily. For myself, I want to continue to be a good free throw shooter. That's a consistency I want to continue on. I really want to be defender of the year. That is my major thing. I love defense. Coach loves defense. Everyone loves defense on this team. I want to continue that, and I want to make it to Defensive Player of the Year.
How excited are you to get the opportunity now, senior year, to play that home opener tomorrow back here inside the John Book Fieldhouse?
I am ecstatic. We always talk about how this is insane how it's happening. All of us seniors keep talking about how fast this is going, as we talked about earlier. And just the fact that we're playing CUC is hilarious because they think that we're their conference rivals, but we both know that we're not. So I think it'll be amazing that we get to play them to start, and how different they'll be in comparison to what we've been seeing and what we will see for the rest of the season.
And a team you could become very familiar with. You guaranteed to play them a couple of times, but then potentially again at CIT, which is back this year out in Seward, Nebraska, end of January. Wrap it up with, as a senior, you mentioned it already, but what is your major? What do you hope to do with that major one day?
I hope to work in a school district someday. I want to work with special needs kids in mental health field, and just continuing to work on that. I have a few clinicals coming up, so I have a 5-year program, so this is my last year at Concordia, but then the next few years I'll be at clinical rotations.
And the major is?
Occupational therapy.
Awesome. Well, Reagan, appreciate your time. All the best this season, and we'll be cheering for you. And again, you can see her in person starting tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, against Concordia Chicago. And when we come back, our focus shifts to men's basketball as they focus on their game tonight, their season opener against Concordia Chicago here inside the John Book Fieldhouse at 7 o'clock. Stay tuned. This is Falcon Focus.
Since 1978, Lutheran Church Extension Fund has had the humble privilege of supporting the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod in fulfilling its mission of sharing the gospel.
Thanks to our faithful investors, we provided thousands of church workers, congregations, schools, and organizations with the resources they need to reach more people with the saving name of Christ. It's what we do.
Because our greatest joy comes from seeing LCMS Ministries and her workers thrive, we will continue to make precious resources available, both today and far into the future. It's our promise to you.
We are Lutheran Church Extension Fund.
We are Lutheran Church Extension Fund.
We are Lutheran Church Extension Fund. We want to be part of your great and exciting work.
Welcome back to this week's edition of Falcon Focus, episode number 10 here in season number 4, a basketball edition. We talked women's basketball in segment 1, now in segment 2, being joined by the all-time winningest coach in Falcon men's basketball history, Sean Cassidy, back for his 16th season, and that officially tips off tonight here inside the John Book Fieldhouse at 7 o'clock against Concordia Chicago. Let's start with that title, all-time winningest coach, and I know it's about the players on the floor, but what does that honor mean to you, especially a program that's near and dear to your heart, a program you played in?
It's special. Just means I've been here for a while, but especially the relationships that I've been able to have with the past coaches. Knowing 5 guys and close to those people that have coached here, and a couple of them have passed away, but having those opportunities of working with them and asking them for advice, going out to lunches, breakfast, whatever it takes to pick whatever I can from them. And all the other coaches before me have been very successful and been very helpful to me. So it's more about the legacy of Concordia basketball than it is about my success.
Is there one piece of advice you've been given that has stuck with you, that served you well in this almost 2 decades of coaching at Concordia?
Coach Weiss challenged me to stretch myself, do things outside my comfort zone, go out, speak, sign up for engagements, do things and be out in front of people. And I think that was a great advice that he gave me. I think I was very comfortable with who I was, but getting out in front and doing clinics and doing speaking engagements, it's been very rewarding.
Let's talk about last season first before we start looking at this season, and you go back to last year, a 14-11 campaign that would see the team 11-6 in a wild NAC that would see the Falcons tied for first with Concordia Chicago and St. Norbert, advanced to the NAC tournament championship game. How would you summarize the way last season played out?
It was a roller coaster. We started out 1-6. We were not healthy, and most of the games we lost, even after Christmas, we weren't healthy. We had a loaded roster, I thought. I thought we had just unbelievable amount of talent. Guys returning for, 3 of them returning for their 5th year, and then Brandon with his 4th year. And the injuries, the illnesses were really stacked against us. And by the time we started hitting our stride, more injuries happened. And then we get to that conference semifinal game in front of a packed house here, incredible environment. And then BK goes down with, eventually find out it's a torn ACL, and Joey limped through the conference tournament on a bad ankle, and we relied a lot on Jordan to try to cover us. And then anybody who went to that championship game hopefully walked away from this place saying, wow, what a great environment, what a great game, and had probably no idea the injuries that we were dealing with and the guts that those guys showed coming out here and doing what they did.
When you look at that senior class, a very talented senior class, what do they mean to the success of this program over the past 4 or 5 years?
Well, it's hard to remember when they weren't here. So we were talking about that all summer of who did they play with, who did they come in with, was such and such a player still here when they started. And it's hard to remember a time when Jordan was not here. He grew up in our gym, coming to camps, coming to clinics. So from probably about the age of, or grade of 6, he's been in our gym. So it's kind of hard to remember a time before Jordan was around, and now it's text messages with him in Denmark. So it was an incredible group of guys. Joey Zietlow was around from the time that his sister was playing, so I've known him from probably 6th grade. Garrett played against my son in summer leagues, so I saw him all through high school and maybe even in junior high as a guy that you kind of identified as this guy's going to be good. And then the career that they had here was unbelievable. Just every day getting a chance to work with them, and I'm sure that they were frustrated with me a lot for being so close to each other for so many years. That it was just a great group and a group that I'm still in touch with.
I have to follow up, and I would not be doing my journalistic job if I didn't ask who got the better of the Garrett-Patrick matchups over the years.
Well, it was pretty even.
Was it?
Oh, it was very even. Having his dad as the coach probably got him a couple extra shots, but then also got Patrick in a little bit of trouble because Garrett was you can't defend him. So I probably was hard on Patrick for not stopping Garrett when he was going off on those shots. But again, he did shoot 48% from 3 his senior year, or his 5th year. So I guess not too many other people could defend him either.
I want to talk about Jordan Johnson again for a second, leaving as the program's all-time leading scorer with 2,107 points, and he's a once in a perhaps generation type player for any program. You can't replace somebody like that, but how do you go about filling that void with the amount of production, not only when it came to scoring, but just the all-around effort that he gave to this Falcon team on a night-in, night-out basis?
Well, you can't. I mean, you can't just replace him with one. You got to replace him by committee. You've got to take his stats and break them down into multiple guys. And, we lost a lot of production from last year's group. Mm-hmm. So our team aspect has got to be bigger this year. We've got to expect 8 to 12 points out of multiple guys rather than 20 out of one, or even what Joey and Garrett were giving us. And I think we've got enough guys that are all going to chip in and do their role. But to expect one of these guys to step in and be Jordan, I think we've had that conversation a number of times. Jordan's gone. We don't need you to score 25 a night, but we need you to do your part. We need you to play your role.
And you lose a guy like Brandon Keller, a beast down the inside. Gabe Pruss playing behind Keller the last number of years. Is Gabe ready to take that next step?
Gabe is ready. I've been so impressed with Gabe. Again, going back to last year's championship game, I thought Gabe played outstanding. And in fact, Gabe and Sam and Matt and Grant and Freeman, they really stepped up in that championship game, and we needed them. And I think they've built on that. They've really taken their roles and expanded them. They've worked extremely hard. I'm sure you saw them in the background as the previous guest was on. And, they're in here every morning. They're working out. They're here at nights. They work extremely hard in practice. They're all ready to take that next step for them individually. Again, we're not expecting 24 points a night out of somebody, but we are expecting maybe 10 to 15. Hopefully we have a couple 20-point nights. There's enough guys in the gym right now that are capable of doing it.
Talking about Gabe Pruss, number 1 on the team last year in blocks. You bring back Jared Durst, who was number 5 on the team in scoring, but he's the top returning when you look at points per game from last year's team. He's the team's and the program's all-time assist leader. What have you seen from him thus far?
Oh, Jared's had a great attitude. I've been very impressed with him. His response to dealing with a whole new group. He's used to playing with a different group, and now he's expected to play with multiple guys at different roles, and his leadership has really grown. We need him to score more. He's been in the top 7, 8 in the country in assists for the past 3 years. We still need that, plus scoring, plus rebounding, plus defense. So those are the conversations that we were having coming out of his decision to come back for his 5th year. Is everything he's been doing has been outstanding for us, and he needs to take that next step, and he's done that.
You've mentioned some of the names already, and you've talked about some of the challenges out there for some of these guys to take that next step now and more expanded roles. But how about a guy like Grant Karsten, Sam Mearstein? What steps do you hope those guys take?
They've been shooting the ball really well. Sam has been an outstanding defender. He's been an outstanding teammate. Last year, struggled shooting the ball, and now in practice he's hitting much more. Grant, we needed him to step up his defense, and he's been much better at that. He's also a confident shooter. So, again, we just need them to take their roles and expand on what their strengths are. We're not looking for anyone to come in and be something they're not. And I think that's been our key for the past month of practice is be good in your role. Be a star in your role. Stick to your role. As soon as we get outside of that, we get in a little bit of trouble.
Added roughly 12 newcomers. How have they been fitting in?
Great. This is an outstanding group of returners that were in the program last year that really had a small role, I guess, but in the overall scheme of things, they have welcomed the newcomers with open arms. They've made everybody feel welcome. It's an extremely close group off the floor. They really enjoy being around each other. It's obvious. So I think they've made the returners have made the transition for the new guys very easy. Guys like Jack Fritz as a freshman coming in and be expected to play major minutes for us this year. I think Gabe has done an outstanding job of leading him and teaching him how to do things. And the guys have been extremely supportive. Make or miss, they're supportive of what he's able to do.
I feel like you and I have had this conversation before, but when you go out recruiting, when you go and watch various basketball players, how do you realize or how does it dawn on you that, hey, this guy could fit in our program, what we're trying to do here at Concordia? What's the selling point for you?
I want to see how hard they're going to play. I want to see what kind of teammate they are. Obviously, we want guys with skill. We want guys that are going to fit a need for us. But character matters with us. Are they a good teammate? Are they going to play hard? Are they listening to the coach? Those are things that are going to catapult somebody, maybe over somebody else that has more talent. But life is pretty short. I don't want to deal with a bunch of guys that have ego problems and attitude problems. I want to deal with the good guys that I want to be around. I mean, we're taking some pretty long trips this year with Iowa, Daytona, and then CIT and Seward. Those are guys you want to be around. This is an outstanding group of guys. I want guys that are going to fit. I want them to take a look at Grant and Sam and Gabe and say, yeah, that's the kind of guy I want around me.
Realistically, and you look at this roster, upwards of 27 guys, 19 are going to be suited up for this opener tonight. Realistically, how deep do you see this team potentially going?
Probably 13.
Okay.
I think we have 6 starters right now. They're only going to let us start 5, so one of them can't start. But I think that's been pretty consistent over the last month. There's 6 that have established themselves as probably above the others. And then with role guys in those next 6 spots that on any given day can really do some things. And we need to see them in game competition to see if they're really doing what we see out of them in practice. And again, it's nice to have opportunities. It's nice to have options that maybe someone jumps in for 30 seconds. Maybe they're in there for a minute, and then they do well, and maybe the role gets expanded. So I'm curious to see how they're going to respond in front of what I expect a pretty full crowd tonight.
You bring up potentially 6 starters. Is that fair to say then nightly it could be an ever-changing starting 5? Nothing set in stone at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we haven't played our first game, so I think it'd be kind of ridiculous for me to say, no, this is what we're going with for the rest of the year. We also know that there's going to be some challenges with Freeman in pharmacy school, that there are going to be some nights where he may not be able to travel with us. Freeman has taken huge steps on and off the basketball floor, but again, pharmacy is what he's studying. It's very difficult. So we've got to be cognizant of that, that there's going to be some nights where he can't go. And if he can't, somebody else needs to fill in his role.
Obviously, without a game having been played, this could change after tonight's game. But just going into the season, what do you feel could be the strengths of this team, at least early on? And then I know you like to ask questions and look for answers. So what are the major questions you have going into this season opener?
I know we're going to play hard. I know we're going to play together. We just can't try to do too much. That's my biggest question that I have coming out is we have guys that are probably going to try to do too much and step outside of their ability level because they feel that they need to help the team. And it's nothing selfish about it. It's just a matter of they see a need to probably do more than they're capable of doing. So that's my biggest question mark is, can we play within ourselves? Can we play within the system? Can we hold each other accountable to doing the discipline, do the hard, rather than try to do something we're not capable of doing.
Is it fair to say this could be one of the younger or more inexperienced teams going into the season based on minutes per game that you've had maybe your time here at?
Probably not. I was thinking back. We had a year where we had Eric Kittle as our starting point guard as a freshman. So 0 game experience. We had a number of guys that really didn't play much. And we went out to Whitewater and played at Whitewater, and they were ranked in the top 5 in the country. And we had to play with a group that really had never been on the floor together. It didn't turn out too well for us, but we saw where it went with Eric after that.
So you feel you're in better shape then? Going into tonight,
we're
at
in
least
better
with this
shape
team.
than we were
that
yes. night. But every 3-4 years, you have to go through that rotation of guys like Jake Juris and Josh Howe and Andrew Fratsky having to go from a role of a bench player to the next year going into a starting lineup. We've done it with Joey and Jordan and BK. They were behind. Those guys behind Howe and Juris, and then they had to step into a role, and sometimes it was a little rough, and then sometimes it was pretty seamless. But that's all part of the college basketball. It's a new team, it's a new season. We just can't get caught into thinking we have to do things exactly the same way, and it may be a little rough at times.
Well, when you look outside, it certainly does feel like basketball season. The snow has fallen. The home opener, the conference opener, the season opener, all in one tonight against Concordia Chicago at 7 o'clock, a team the Falcons split a couple of innings with a year ago. They return their top 2 and 3 out of their top 4 scorers. They're off to a 2-0 start. They've played a couple of games against Loris and against Knox. When you think Concordia Chicago, what do you expect when you play the Cougars?
Well, I think it's the unexpected with them. They're going to trap. They're going to press. They're going to zone. They'll go man. They're going to switch things up on you. So just when you think you have an idea of what they're doing, they're going to change. They're very well coached. I don't think they have all their calls in place yet based on what I've seen on them on film. But they're very athletic. I mean, they're capitalizing on turnovers. I think they had 43 points off turnovers in their last game. So they're opportunistic in their scoring. So I think it's kind of a difference in style than what we're looking to play this year. So it should be a great matchup with contrast and personnel.
Well, do they want to play fast? And if so, do you want to slow down the tempo?
We just want to play our game. We don't know exactly what that pace is. I mean, we've been averaging 80-plus points a night. So I would not say that we're going to walk the ball up and try to score in the 60s. That has never been a strong suit of mine. We're going to be aggressive, but we have to take care of the ball. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, throughout this year, we have to take care of the ball. We have to give ourselves opportunities to score rather than allowing another team to force us into something we're not capable of doing.
Overall, let's take a look at the NAC and what you maybe expect here this winter. Last year was a free-for-all. It seemed like anybody could be anybody, and it very well could be that way again here this winter. At least the top 3 in the preseason poll sees St. Norbert number 1. They will be here already next Tuesday for a 7 o'clock tip-off. Marion number 2, Concordia Chicago number 3. MSU could surprise some, although their head coach, Brian Miller, announced yesterday he is stepping down. His final game is Saturday. So I guess just preseason-wise, looking at the conference as a whole, you expect the unexpected again this winter?
Absolutely. I mean, we're pick number 7, so I think we're going to surprise some people of where we're projected to be. But absolutely. Brian Miller stepping down or moving into full-time AD role, to be honest, kind of saddens me. I've been going against him since I've got here, and he's a good friend. He's a good mentor to me on the basketball side. I always enjoyed watching his teams play and watching his scouting report on teams and then try to steal some of the ideas because he's such a great basketball mind. But I understand with the family, with the job as AD. So that was kind of a surprise to me yesterday to get that. So we exchanged a few texts last night just about that. But, again, I think he's a great coach. So when you're used to playing against somebody in that system, and he's been running a certain system for a long time, that's going to be unexpected. And he's got a different roster as well. Benedictine's got a new coach. So, again, going against Keith for that many years, you get used to a certain style. So that's going to be a change for us. Aurora has a different coach. We hear he's running pretty much the same kind of style, but I have not watched any film on him. And then I think on any given night, someone's going to knock off somebody else. I think this is going to be a close conference, such difference in styles. We have CUC this week. We got St. Norbert next week, completely opposite style, where they're going to slow it down and they're going to hit you with a ton of screens. And then the following week, we're at WLC, which is going to be fast-paced, pressing. So it's every night you're going to see something a little different. And then I think we end off during finals week with Marion. And Marion has an outstanding roster. They picked up a couple transfers, so they're going to score a lot of points. So every night's going to be kind of a difference in styles. And as we all try to figure out who that is and what matchups work the best in everybody's favor, I think there's going to be a lot of I guess it won't be a surprise if somebody else beats somebody, because you just don't know what everyone's capable of doing.
Let's wrap it all up. How do you when you look at this season, your season outlook, how do you summarize what, I guess you're kind of thinking or expecting going into these now first few weeks?
We have to start finding our rotations. I think that's going to be our biggest key. Is we traditionally start with a very, very tough schedule. We always schedule tough teams and tough spots, and I really want to find out what we have. So now it's a matter of how do our rotations, who are those people coming off the bench. We're not going to hit our stride until January, probably at the earliest, and we know that. I mean, especially with the, it's everybody ranked ahead of us that we're having in the first part of the conference season. So it may be kind of a slow process. We're just going to play hard and look for some good things. I think we've been very efficient in our scrimmages on how we're executing, and really trust that our strength of our team is the team. It's we think the game, we communicate very well, and then we'll just try to keep building as we go and see how far we can take this group.
Well, Coach, as always, appreciate your time. All the best this winter. That's the head coach of the Falcons, Sean Cassidy. And again, men's basketball officially tips off their season here inside the John Boot Fieldhouse tonight at 7 against Concordia Chicago. That will do it for this all basketball edition. Thanks for joining us for Falcon Focus.